springtime, and now the mountain bike trails are open, and I'm going to do some reviews of the 2024 YT Decoy. This is the perfect time of year to be riding here at about 6,000 feet. The soil is just so nice. I want to do a little recap of the first 100 miles on the YT Decoy Core 4 and talk a little bit about the ordering process and some of my first impressions with the bike. So I've put about 100 miles on this bike now, and several of you have been asking what I think. So it's a little early to tell you what I think overall, but I thought I'd give you my first impressions because people are thinking about buying this bike, and it's good to have that information out there from somebody who has experienced it. I love the bike. I mean, it's a beautiful bike, and there's almost everything I love about it. There are a few things I don't love about it, and I'll get into those. First of all, it's great value for what you get. Great components, forks, shock, 720 watt hour battery, dropper seat post, the EP801 motor. It's hard to get that in a bike at this price, and with the component setup on this bike, I think it's a great deal. So this is the Core 4. The Core 4 has the Olin suspension and includes the coil in the back, which I do notice the difference between an air spring and a coil spring. And I like the coil spring. It's got a sort of an instantaneous, smooth response that is a little different than what I have experienced with the air shock. So far, so good, but I'll do better comparison alongside my other bike to see how much difference it really makes. Now, the Olin's front forks on this bike are 38s. I think just the larger diameter fork stanchions, keeping the forks from flexing, I could notice the difference, and that is something I've done a side-by-side comparison on, and if there's one thing I would upgrade on a bike if it didn't already have it, it's to put 38s on the forks, and this bike already came with it, so that is a huge plus. This bike has the EP801 motor, and I like it. It is a little different than the EP8. I think I like the EP801 motor a little bit more than the EP8, and it's not a huge difference, but it's noticeable. It does have more power output, that's noticeable. It has a little bit more run out, or I'll call it, I don't know if that's the right word, but it's got a little bit of power that remains on after you stop pedaling. Just enough. It's probably a fraction of a second. It's just enough to allow you to stop pedaling while you're going over a rock if you think you're going to do a pedal strike. The EP801 also has a different display on it, which is color, which makes it a little bit easier to read what mode you're in. Another thing I like about this bike is how you charge it, how you connect the charger. Now, a couple things I don't like about this bike. I don't like low engagement hubs. The difference between a low engagement hub and a high engagement hub, to me, makes a difference between pedal striking and not pedal striking. The other thing I don't like about this bike, and I haven't resolved it yet, I've determined what the problem is, but I haven't fixed it completely, and that is cable rattling. There's a lot of rattling going on in the frame here, and so I've been working on fixing it. I've got most of it fixed. I'm going to open this battery compartment up, pull the battery out, and show you what I've done and do a little bit more. So this is what I've done to prevent the rattling. As you can see, there are cables running up and down the top of the frame if this was flipped over, and one of them is a large, I think, charging cable here that ends up connecting to this piece here. So I've wrapped bubble wrap around it and zip tied it. See, it's rattling right in there. But then listen to this one. It's coming through here. It doesn't rattle up here. But if I wiggle it here, go all the way up here, it rattles, and when I rattle it, it just keeps rattling. You don't have to press stop because it's rattling around in there. I spent a long time talking about the rattles on that bike, but overall, I love the bike. And in case you're planning to order it, there's a few things you ought to know. One is sizing. When I was looking up what size bike to buy, I had trouble because the bike that I currently have, the Canyon, has different measurements than the YT. The Canyon I bought in a size medium. The YT was being recommended as a size large. And the dimensions are quite a bit different if you look online for the reach, for instance. However, if you read about RAD, which is the rider area distance, which is really the distance between your arms and your feet, it's a different story because the RAD on both of these bikes is identical. I didn't know that until I bought the bike and I took the measurement, but if you're interested and you look up what RAD is best for you, the medium spectral, and on this bike, the YT Decoy large RAD is 876 millimeters. The other thing you need to know is that the spring rate may not be right for your body weight. And unlike an air spring, you can't adjust it for your body weight. You need to adjust it by purchasing a different spring. Because the spring that comes with it is made for somebody that's about 165 pounds. I'm about 10 pounds less than that, fully weighted, which makes a difference. YT has a configurator online that tells you what spring rate you need. I had to buy a different spring rate than the original. I got it through Jensen USA. I'll put in the description, maybe on the screen here, the size of the spring you need. I got that from YT, but you need to make sure you're getting the right distance and diameter of spring, and then in the spring rate that you need for the bike. Very easy to change. You pull out this pin and this pin, very easy to do. Once you have this shock assembly off, you're just unscrewing this little ring right here. When you do that, this ring is wide enough it goes over this pin, so there's nothing else you need to remove. So until next time, thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you want to see the next reviews on this bike or some reviews on parts that I'm adding to it, or that I've added to my other bike, and definitely comparisons that I'll be doing between the Spectral and this bike, and just general riding around the trails in Tahoe.